So in this episode I'll show you how to make sourdough ciabatta. The process of making it is quite similar to the yeasted version. All you need is sourdough starter. If you don't have one yet, click the link in the top right corner to learn how to make one. Or if you want to learn how to make a yeasted ciabatta, also click the link in the top right corner because I have a recipe for that too. But for now, let's get on with the sourdough version here. And as always, you'll find a full recipe with all the weights and measurements down in the description box. There's only a few pieces of equipment that you'll need to make this bread. Use a thick bottom tray or cast iron skillet to bake them on. You'll need a bowl to mix your dough in, scales, scraper, temperature probe, and a thick lint-free kitchen towel, but more on this later. Now for the ingredients, you'll need some strong white bread flour, some water, some salt, a splash of olive oil, and a nice and active sourdough starter. A strong and happy starter is the foundation for good bread. So the first thing we need to do is build the leaven. And I know my kitchen is around 20 degrees C, so my water temperature will be the same. So to make the leaven, we'll just weigh out a portion of the total water, a portion of the total flour, and a little bit of our sourdough starter. I make this at a 1 to 10 to 10 ratio, so 1 part starter, 10 parts water, 10 parts flour. And I know that with room temperature water, it will take me 12 to 16 hours to have it ready for baking. Yours might be more active, might be less active, so it's up to you to learn how your leaven reacts. But this is how simple it is. You just mix it together until you don't see any more dry flour, cover it up and leave it. I normally do this overnight. It should at least double in size, if not triple. Alright, so it's the next day, leaven's nice and bubbly, and it should be strong, not runny and loose. You should feel resistance when you run your scraper through it. So now, we'll do something called an autolyse. It's where we add the rest of the flour, the rest of the water, to the leaven and let it hydrate. Keep a couple of tablespoons of water behind, I'll show you in a minute why. Now the autolyse will greatly help us improve gluten development without us kneading the dough. This will be less time consuming, take less effort, and will give us a better result. And it's super simple, you just add the water, add the flour, and mix until you don't see any more dry flour. And then we'll cover it up and we'll leave it for half an hour to an hour. So we're not adding the salt to the mix yet, and that's why we left that water behind, to dissolve the salt flakes. Salt would compete with the flour for the water, and it might turn the dough quite stiff. And we're also not adding the oil yet, because there's no gluten development at this moment. In fact, any fat you add to your dough will hinder gluten development. So once we mix it all up, cover it and leave it sit. So it's been about an hour, and when we mixed it, this was just a soggy mess. But now, if I pick it up and stretch it, you can see there's gluten. All this progress without any elbow grease. Amazing. So now we can add the rest of our ingredients, the salted water and a splash of olive oil. And now it's time to get your hands dirty. I would suggest wetting your hand with water before you start squeezing the dough, because this will be extremely sticky at first. And there's no real technique here, just get in there, squeeze the dough between your fingers. Make sure everything's well combined before you tip it out on your table. Now this dough is wet and sticky, so we'll use a stretch and fold method for kneading it. And I like to keep a little bit of water in my scraper nearby to control the mess. So stretch and fold works like this. You pick the dough up by one side, stretch it against the table and fold it forwards, and repeat. It will be quite sticky at first, but it'll start coming together. Just do it quickly and gently, that'll prevent it from sticking. Now this may take from 10 to 15 minutes. And if you want to count it, it's about 400 to 500 turns. It will definitely give you a workout. So once in a while you can use the water to prevent your hands from sticking to the dough. Also the scraper comes in very handy for collecting all the dough back into a ball. And you will feel the dough getting less sticky in your hands. It will be more smooth and stretchy. Of course you can use a mixer. It will take around 8 minutes on medium speed, I would say. But I do encourage you trying things by hand. That way you will learn to feel the dough. And this particular dough looks about right to me. Give it a couple more folds. It's nice and smooth now, stretchy, a little bit elastic, and it's ready for its first proofing. Now get it in a bowl, and always take the temperature. 23-24 degrees C is ideal. Because there's a large proportion of leaven, this will ferment quite rapidly, so cover it up and leave it to proof for 45 minutes. And after the first 45 minutes of proofing, we'll perform a fold. So folding, in this case, serves two purposes. One, it will create more layers in the gluten structure, thus making your dough stronger. It will help it stand up, keep its shape, and hold in the fermentation gases. And number two, the folding will equalize the temperature in the dough. Say your kitchen is cool, your dough is warm in the middle and cool on the outside. By folding, you're distributing the temperature evenly throughout the dough. That will give you a more even fermentation. So once we've done the folds, cover it up, leave it to proof for 45 more minutes. Now it should really start puffing up. And after the second proof, we'll do the second fold. And I'll show you a different perspective. Always wet your hands, otherwise they will stick. So pick the dough up by the middle, release it from the bowl and roll it underneath itself. And then turn the bowl and repeat on all corners. This is called a coil fold, because we are rolling it up like a coil. And remember that every subsequent fold has to be performed more gently than the previous one. You don't want to knock out any of the fermentation gases. So once you're happy with that, cover it up, leave it to proof 45 more minutes. See those dimples in the sides? If after proofing and puffing up they're still present, that's a very good sign. It means that your dough is strong and well fermented. And I'm quite happy with this. So now it's shaping time. And because the dough is quite sticky, use plenty of flour. In this case, better too much than not enough. And this is where the kitchen towel comes into play. Also dust it generously with flour, because we'll proof our ciabatta straight on this cloth. Now using your scraper, release the dough from the bowl and tip it out upside down. And once again, dust everything with flour, generously dust the bottom too. So in bakeries, they normally use a thick linen cloth called a couche, and you can ferment all kinds of loaves of bread on it. Whole loaves, baguettes, ciabattas. I'm going to cut this into 4. So I'm going to square the dough up, just cut it right down in the middle. And you can make as many as you like. The process is the same. Just remember to keep dusting everything with flour. Once you've cut it open, separate it so it doesn't flow back together, and dust those seams. Once this starts sticking, you're not gonna have a good time, trust me. So this method will give us 4 quite large ciabatta loaves. You could divide this into 6, but that's up to you. And again, every time you cut, separate them so they don't flow back together, and dust the seams with flour. So place them on the cloth the same way they are sitting on the table. Make sure to leave some space between them on the cloth as well. They will spread out a little bit, and as they are proofing they'll get bigger as well. They might stick together. I will proof them in rows, so I know that my tea towel will fit only 2 in a row. Once I've placed 2 on there, I'll fold over the edge and fold up a crease on the other side. It is these creases and folds that will help them keep their shape. That's why using a thick towel is very important. And once you finish, you can fold over the rest of the towel to cover the dough. And again, we'll use the edges to help keep the tension. Now at this point, you want to preheat your oven 240 degrees C, no fan, and also preheat your baking vessel. We'll proof these for 45 minutes. And the reason why I put these on the board is because I can't fit all of them in my oven at once. So whilst the first ones are baking, put the other ones in the fridge so they don't overproof. So it's been 45 minutes, they puffed up nicely. And as I said before, keep them apart, otherwise they'll stick together. And the 2 large ones have stuck together. That's fine, it's not the end of the world. So get your hot pan ready and we'll bake these upside down. And be ever so gentle because they are super stretchy and loose. And because they proofed on the flour, this will give the surface those distinct ciabatta stripes. You can give them a bit of a stretch as you are putting them down in the pan to make them longer. And get them in the oven. They shouldn't take more than 15-17 minutes to bake. And that's your sourdough ciabatta. Easy, right? These are super easy to make, especially compared to a normal loaf of bread. We are skipping the pre-shaping step, final shaping, the scoring. A lot less skill needed to make these. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, write them down in comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.